Hey, everybody. I think we're live here. Dom Nicastro, host of this LinkedIn Live and CMSWire managing editor. I'm here with our one and only guest today, Adam Topolak, president, CTS Service Solutions. Adam, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, Dom? Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks to CMSWire.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you on. We're going to be talking about ways we can create a customer-centric culture. Don't we all have that already lined up? I mean, come on. Isn't it already in the books,
Yeah, I
done?
mean, you've gone shopping, right? Every company has it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny. We actually have a column coming out tomorrow by one of our contributors, CMS Wire's Jake Athey, talking about stop talking about this. Stop talking about this. Stop using jargon. Let's go out and do it. Okay. No more personalization cliches. Let's go out and do the job. So this is perfectly timed, Adam. I'm so glad you're with us today.
Awesome. And yeah, let's talk about how we do it, not just talk about how important
Yes.
it is to do it.
And we are going to talk about all about the ways to do that. 5 ways, as a matter of fact. But before we get into that, I just want to give the audience a sense of, hey, who is this guy? Who is Adam Toporek? So tell us about your organization, yourself, and what's hot right now with customer experience for you.
All right, perfect. I'm president of CTS Service Solutions, which stands for Customers That Stick, which is our blog, customersthatstick.com. I am a third generation entrepreneur, so I don't come from a huge corporate background. I actually come from small business. Grandfather had a Main Street shoe store. Mom had a children's clothing store. Father had a wholesale music distributorship. So I grew up and around small business, and my parents were customer centric essentially before there was a term for customer centric. So I just grew up with that. Later on, I had my own businesses, and eventually, more than 10 years ago, really just started on this journey, started blogging about customer experience, doing keynote speeches and training. And that's pretty much what we're focused on now. We really focus on training, some strategic advisory and cultural work, and then I do keynote speeches. And that is it. As far as what I'm seeing right now, it is all over the map. Tell me the industry, and I'll tell you the problem.
Yeah.
Because it's between supply chain and labor and fear about economic conditions and everything that's going on in the world. I think different industries and different companies are reacting differently and facing different challenges.
Yeah, when we came out of, we were in the thick of COVID and how that affected the businesses and customer experience. We were like, all right, let's weather the storm. Let's take the lessons that we've, accelerated in digital customer experience. And let's just, soon as the pandemic ends, we are going to be ready. Like we've adapted. We had to adapt. We digitally transformed overnight, literally. But then now it's like another whole new world with the way the economy is and everything. It's just being a customer experience professional. So like, do I focus on retention? Do I dive into acquisition still? What costs more? How do I balance those two things? I mean, this is just a bunch of crazy set of circumstances that are happening. Even I didn't expect this post COVID for sure.
Yeah, I think I would say this. It depends how prepared you are for this phase depends on what lessons you took away from the pandemic. If the lessons you took away were digital transformation and just sort of moving the ball forward faster, that was already in going downfield, which is what we saw, right? We saw things that the big companies were already doing just accelerated times 5, right? The budgets just got thrown into them. If that's the lesson you took away, that's fine. But if the lesson you took away was the world is unpredictable and we need to be adaptable and flexible culturally, that needs to, we're going to talk about culture today, really from the lens of customer centric, but there are other aspects to culture. If one of the things you took away is we need to be a nimble organization, our culture needs to be able to pivot to changing circumstances. I think the companies that have done that have really shifted culturally to say, the landscape is never predictable. And it's going to probably continue to be unpredictable. I think those companies are going to be better positioned right now to manage these storms, because it's coming from, as you pointed out, different directions, between supply chain and labor and a war and everything, and possibly a pending recession, right? It's just there's things just coming in companies depending on the industry from different directions. So I think that adaptability and having that as a cultural ethos is crucial.
Yeah. So we agree on that. We probably should want to strive to be customer centric. We might not agree on how to get there. So let's give your 5 steps on how to get there. Discuss, and please, people, comment in here if you disagree. Said, hey, that didn't work in my organization, because we know culture is like it's an important thing, but it's not like a tangible thing, right? It's something you build over time. It's not tangible. It's not like you can't touch it like you can touch a building, right? Like a brick building. So there's a lot to it, and disagreement, agreement is good. So let's go. Let's start with number one. Number one with
Well,
Adam.
you have to decide what culture you want.
Decide on what culture you want. That's
it's
right.
that simple. I mean, what do you want? If you are a churn and burn sales organization, that's your culture, right? If it's sort of cliche, and this is not every used car shop that obviously, but that is the cliche. Like if you take the cliche of the used car sales lot, right? That was it. It was churn and burn. They don't care about repeat customers. They wanted to just maximize, and that may be your culture, right? Your culture may be, okay, well, we are a manufacturer and all we care about is efficiency and cost minimization because we've got a monopoly on the market. They're going to buy our stuff no matter what. That may be your culture. In the great majority of industries today, if you want to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace, you're going to want to have a customer-centric culture because most of the time your product everybody will catch up on your product, right? The products begin to look the same. They begin to cost the same. Your advantage disappears. Experience is the advantage you can have. So you have to, if you want to be a customer-centric company, if you decide that is the culture you want, then you've got to put customers first. You've got to say, okay, here's what that means. And there's a lot to that, obviously. But one of the things is just understanding that we put the customer at the center. That's it's sort of a literal statement, customer centric. We put the customer at the center of all decisions. Does not mean we always make the decision that the customer wants. We may be constrained by liability. We may be constrained by regulation. But we put them at the center. So if we are, let's say, constrained by regulation, we're going to say, okay, how do we improve the experience around this? We have to do this. How do we improve the experience? That's put that instead of, the old way of saying it. If you're not a customer centric culture, you go, well, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied.
I wonder how you even start. I mean, people might say it starts at the C-suite level. I mean, they're the ones that are driving communication. They're driving, employee experience. Maybe, or is it really a collective thing within the whole organization that can drive culture? Because again, it's just not something like, if you want to build a customer data platform, you know how to do that, right? You get vendor demo, you go out and select the right one, everyone's involved, and you test it, you have a bake off. Like, how do you even start with building deciding on the culture you want? Like, all right, everyone, what are we going to do for culture? Like, this, it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, I think there are some people, I've heard people sort of contend or argue that culture can come from the bottom. I think elements of culture can come from the bottom, but you cannot change the overall culture. You cannot determine the culture solely in a bottom-up way. It has to come from the top. It has to come from leadership. Why? Because leadership controls the decisions that are made. Leadership controls what the priorities are. So you can't have a customer-centric culture if the leadership's priorities are not customer-centric, right? So it's crucial that it comes from leadership. And one of the things we talk about, of course, you and I and people in the CX industry is, okay, we have got a lot of the organization who believes that we need to be customer-centric. How do we sell the C-suite? Or how do we sell the CEO? Because sometimes this doesn't pay off in a quarter. It generally never pays off in a quarter, right? It pays off down the road. It's an investment, and that can be difficult. Sales, I can invest $1 and get back two. A lot of times, I know what that dollar is going to get me. A dollar invested in experience can be harder to track and harder to see.
Yeah. All right. So it's not simple as let's have a meeting on deciding our culture. Everyone puts their pick in the hat and we pick it out. It doesn't happen that way. Whatever draws the most. So
Yeah,
it's about building over time, I'm sure. All
of
right,
course.
let's move on to number two. Number two for building a customer-centric culture. It's going to be hire for cultural fit. Cultural fit is a big term, and I'll tell you my opinion on it, but I'll let you go first.
It's a big term and it is a pretty vague term, quite frankly. So, not sure if that's going to be your opinion, but I'll say that part right now. It's a vague term. It's hard to say what that is. One, you have to do that first step. You have to know your culture. Two, you have to deal with reality. How do you hire for cultural fit when there's no labor? When everybody's strapped for labor, right? I mean, sometimes you're going to make accommodations because you're dealing with sort of macroeconomics. You're dealing with supply and demand in the labor market, the great resignation. So it's also a bit of something you have to adapt to reality, but it is the end goal. And when you talk about what that cultural value is, if you are a customer centric culture, which is what we're talking about today, that means you really want to know, does this person actually just care for customers? Do they believe in the ethic? Do they believe that customers are important? Not because, oh, it's my job, right? There's an ethic to customer service. There's an ethic to customer experience. And that's sort of a big word maybe to describe it. But I believe in somebody's giving me something. They deserve my attention. They deserve my respect. They deserve a good experience for that economic value they're providing the company I work for or my business or whatever it may be. And at some people's core, they don't believe that. They believe customers are a hassle. They're somebody you have to deal with to
Yeah.
get through to the end of the day. So that's the beginning of cultural fit.
So put me in the shoes of a couple of hiring managers, right, who just went through the series of interviews and they got a top 3 for candidates. I don't know how they arrived at that top 3, but they did. And when they're asking each other questions like, is that person a cultural fit? What sort of answers are they looking for? Are they trying to say, uh, could you imagine them speaking to one of our customers, or could you imagine them hanging out with us? At a company event. Could you imagine them representing us on a customer service call? Like, what questions are you trying to fit with the cultural fit? When you're going through that hiring process, what kind of measurements or standards are you looking for exactly? You think?
Well, I think, I'm going to actually jump to the second one if I got the order correctly, which is, I think you do want to focus on how will they fit with the team. But I also want to be careful with that too. When you're looking at cultural fit for the team, you need to construe that from the standpoint of belief systems, right? Do they believe, are they customer centric, sort of the things we just spoke about? You want to be careful not to hire a homogenized team, right? You want to hire diversity. You want to have different views. You want to have different perspectives. You want to be careful just making sure everybody looks the same and thinks the same and all that. So it's a balancing act with making sure they fit the team. You want to make sure they fit the core, the values of the team, but you're not looking for the same person every time, right? You do want some perspectives. Past that, I think one of the things that's really important is you've got to have multiple interviews. You've got to really dig deep. That's a technique. When I was in retail, I mean, one of the things we did was we made sure we asked questions that they couldn't fake about cultural fit. All right. So I'll give you 2 examples really quick. These are great questions if you're hiring for a customer facing role. One was, tell me about a time you wowed a customer. This assuming that's not their first job.
Mhm.
Right. Tell me about a time you wowed a customer. Somebody that really believes in it. Oh, wow, this happened and I did this and my manager helped me or whatever it may be. Next one is give them a role play. Don't just, because everybody's
Yep.
going to tell you, oh, I would do X. Watch them try to do it. Watch them, how they use language. Watch how they think about it, how they approach. Really, really focus on getting past the interview, the standard, I'm prepped for my interview, I'm going to be able to fake it through. And multiple interviews is very revealing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the idea of, putting them in a scenario that commonly happens in your organization with customers, and kind of asking them, hey, like for us, like hiring an editorial and stuff like that, we'd be like, hey, someone called and they want you to take the story down. They didn't like how it looked and they're really upset. Like, how do you approach that situation? And I just want to, there's no right answer. I just want to see sort of what their approach to a frustrated customer would be. An angry customer, like how would you represent Simpler Media Group where, I work, CMSWire.com. How would you represent us if they came with that scenario, And the term cultural fit scares me at first because, I had a great colleague that told me once, hey, let's not hire for cultural fit. Let's hire for cultural ads. I thought it was a really powerful statement. And you brought that up yourself, Adam, too, talking about, hiring for diverse thinking and stuff like that. So I think that's an incredibly important way to look at it as well. Cultural ad. I love that term.
Yeah, I like that. I didn't use that language, but we're saying the same thing, which is
exactly. And because fit makes me think of George Costanza when he went for that job in Seinfeld. Like, George, if you're one of us, you'll take a bite. You're trying to get a job, and he didn't want to take a bite because he knew the cook did something to the food in the background. But
but you're right. Fit is something we have to be careful with for sure. That word.
It is. It's such and again, this whole conversation is not. There's so many gray areas. I mean, it's incredible. The culture is absolutely not a black and white mathematical formula. All right, here's our culture. It's in a document, and you have to act like that. So,
no.
And I think customers will catch on to that pretty fast if you are that kind of organization. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 in our ways to build a customer-centric culture. Embody the culture from the top down. It's embody the culture from the top down. What's the top of the organization? How do you go down from there? What's that all about?
Well, as much as I like to have an egalitarian viewpoint, there is an organizational chart in most organizations, and it is arranged vertically. I mean, you've got, again, it's about priorities. So this is what I see in so many companies and that are struggling or that are trying to change the culture, right? They've gone from a heavy sales culture or a heavy, maybe R&D tech culture, and they're trying to create an experience culture. And it's really hard to make that shift. It's very hard for leadership to make that shift because, all right, we talk about customers. So name a company that doesn't have the poster on the wall, we love our customers, or some version of that, right? But then when everybody sits down for their quarterly review, it's all right, what were your numbers? What'd you sell? How efficient were you? Right? They're not, okay, I've got an expression is like, put your money where your message is, right? Because our incentives send a message. If you're going to incentivize sales, you're going to get sales. If you're going to incentivize efficiency, you're going to get efficiency. If you want to incentivize all of it, then you need to incentivize all of it. Just saying we love our customers, just saying our customers are important does not get it done because you're sending mixed messages. You're saying that, but when you shine the lens on what's important, what are you shining it on? Not that. And that's the challenge. That's where we get this idea of embody, right? Our actions send a message.
Yeah. It's like the example of, great customer-centric company you would think is like Netflix and Amazon. They're, amazing. Customers are always happy pretty much with those services. But what's on the inside, right? What kind of culture is within the walls of that? Are they walking the walk there with employee experience too? Which is a big part of building customer-centric cultures and is empowering employees first, isn't it? Right?
No, 100%. I mean, we'll talk about empowerment in a minute, but it's one of the things that is crucial is when I mentioned at the beginning, industry, right? The catch is in the two industries you mentioned, well, depending on Amazon, but 99 Netflix, I don't know, 99.99% of the interactions are digital, right? They never talk to a human. They never interact with somebody at the company. I don't know what the number is, but obviously it's not much, right? It's not the same as going to the mall where all the interactions are with an employee. And Amazon too. I mean, trying to get a phone number for Amazon is not the easiest thing you're ever going to do in your life to get customer support, right? It's true. Email and tickets. It's a challenge. So, when we speak about that culture and how important it is, where that weight is, how we view customer centricity, how we view designing that customer experience and embodying it may also be different with how we interact with our customers. Because if you're the Ritz-Carlton, your whole team has to have these skills. Everybody that's on site has to have these skills of personal interaction, soft skills. How do we work with an upset customer? How do we provide proactive service and those types of things? And I think when you talk about embodiment, it's always going to be a little bit tailored to the business model.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I think we can move on to numero 4. Let's go to number 4. And we were talking about empowerment a second ago and employee experience. So this kind of ties into that. Give your team the skills they need. Give your team the skills they need. How does that help build a customer-centric culture?
Well, I've got a dog in this hunt. We are a training company, but the thing is, what do most companies do? They hand you the manual, they give you the login, or they train you on how to fill out the TPS reports. And what they don't train you on,
No cover sheet.
exactly. Uh, what they don't train you on is how to work with people. They don't give you the soft skills. And here's the thing: one of the things that I think makes our training different than a lot is what we've learned in the last 10 years about psychology and human emotion. Right? That emotion truly is the most important thing in customer experience. And not only that, we've learned so much about how the human brain works, so much about how we react to anger, how we react to stress. And one of the things is we are not naturally built. Okay, we are just not designed to be yelled at, screamed at, cussed at, and go, "Thank you, ma'am. I'd love to help you with that."
Hmm.
Okay, we have an instinctual response no matter who we are. The training is how we manage that response. All right. The training is how do we learn to depersonalize in the moment? How do we learn to overcome our own stress chemicals as well as acknowledge what's happening with the customer, which is they are having this release of stress chemicals, right? That creates anger, that creates
Hmm.
a lack of rationality and all of these things. And so how do we manage that? What are the techniques that we can use working around? And, the problem is we have so many leaders have this old way of thinking that is, oh, well, I just hire somebody who's good with people.
Yeah, what
That
does it
works.
even mean?
Yeah, that works. That pretty much works for proactive service pretty well. Not completely. You still need training and, a mission and things like that. But you can get a fairly close alignment with proactive service. With reactive service, with difficult situations, it does not map particularly well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's funny you mentioned about, the release of the stress and the chemicals. It's like no one ever does this. No one ever calls the call center and says, "Hey, I just want to let you know you're doing a great job. Thanks. Have a good one." Yeah, like no one, it's you have to be ready in customer service and customer experience circles for the rage. It's just coming at you hard and it's coming fast. And you're the front line of the company. I mean, those contact center agents are the most underpaid, but the most important person in the company, right?
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, and,
Oh,
and the retention is horrible for call center agents. You look at the statistics out there, you see like average 30 days. I mean, you just see this turnover like crazy. It's costing companies big time.
well, yeah, because contact center, right? Any type of contact center is reactionary. It is problem resolution. So every call is a problem. I always use this example. Go to Best Buy one day and look at the expression on the people who are just working the floor, like I don't know what they call them there, maybe the sales associates,
Mm.
and then look at the expression on the face of the geek squad.
Hmm.
Because the people on the floor are like, "Oh, sure, I'll show you this. This camera's fun." The geek squad is just getting beat up
Problems.
all day long, and that's what a contact center is. It's just that differentiation. It is problem after problem after problem, or challenge after challenge after challenge, if you like to phrase it more positively. But that's one of the things leaders, we talk about culture and talk about how do we create a great culture. Leaders need to understand this. Leaders need to understand the psychological toll, how difficult this is. If they've never had, a lot of leaders haven't gone through the company, right? They've come from leadership in another company. They haven't worked a contact center or a retail job or been a waiter, even whatever it may be, and they just don't know. And understanding that, I think, and having empathy and keeping in mind the employee experience is crucial. And part of that is giving them the tools to handle the conversations. And that's the training.
You know, no offense, because I know you're in the business of this and helping organizations, but I just think we should all watch Undercover Boss. I think that would fix everything. I mean, honestly, right? I mean, that is getting in the shoes of your employees and your customers, right? I'm serious. That's not the model.
I know. I understand.
But it's there's a lesson there. It's
no, 100%. Yeah.
It's walking in the shoes of your employees and your customers and then fixing problems through that. That's a great way, I think, to establish a customer-centric culture, is walking in the shoes more often of customers. Like, what are we actually producing here for a service, for a product? Can I use it well? Can I call customer service? You know, a CMO, a CEO should be calling customer service, disguised every now and again, right? And see how that process is.
Well, that's the old Tom Peters, right? Management by wandering around or walking around, right? That's concept's been around. And I have a blog post from years ago. There used to be this whole thing called the 88 rule, which they surveyed the customers of a bunch of large organizations, and they surveyed the CEOs. What do you think of the experience at your company or at the company you shop at? 80% of the CEOs thought they delivered an excellent experience. 8% of the customers agreed. Right. There is a gap there. And to your point, the Undercover Boss, right? I mean, that doesn't get rid of the training. I'm happy, because what it does is that helps you identify the problem. That helps you have empathy and see that, oh, wow, I do need to equip my team. I do need to give them the tools, because this ain't easy.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's give you about 2 to 3 minutes, Adam Toporek, on this one, the final one, for ways to build a customer-centric culture, and that's going to be empower your team to help customers in real time. I wish we had more time, because I have a story that I saw in real time that didn't do this, and it made someone very upset. But you go ahead. Wow. You give your thoughts.
All right, 3 minutes on empowerment. I can do a whole speech on empowerment. So here's the thing. You've got to empower your teams. That is part of this idea of a customer-centric culture. I consider empowerment the win-win-win of customer experience. Okay, because what you're doing is you're enabling your team to resolve issues in real time. So the customer wins, because by definition, any delay is a bad experience. It may not be a horrible experience depending on what it is, but if you're not resolving it there, it is a worse experience than if you had. Second of all, you're creating more stress for the employee, right? The employee now can't give the customer what they want, has to work with the emotions, has to possibly work with some really difficult emotions, and has to elongate the process. And when you do this, when you empower your teams, enable them to solve issues in real time, it is simply the best investment you can make. Okay, the best investment you can get in customer experience is preventing a problem from occurring in the first place, and certainly preventing it from escalating. It is by far, we definitely don't have time, because it takes like 3 minutes just to do it. I've done this whole exercise just showing, okay, what happens when we don't resolve the problem? It'll depend on the industry when we're doing trainings. Okay, involving a manager, involving this, involving social media team if they complain on social media, involving a lawyer possibly. The cost of some problems can be enormous. When you can resolve it in real time, it's, like I said, it's the win-win-win of customer experience. Now, there's a lot to how you do that, and maybe we can have that chat another time, because I don't think we can do it in 1 minute.
That's all right. And I wanted to wrap up too. I would add a sixth way for my own experience as a journalist. Now, I'm not a customer experience VP or anything like that, but I've talked to millions of them in the last 8 years. Probably not millions. Hyperbolic statement there. But the thing that resonates with me over the years is talk to customers. Make it a goal to talk to one customer a week. Everyone in the organization talks to one customer a week. Not looking at your customer sentiment tool, which is important. Not looking at your customer data platform, important. Your customer relationship management platform. That's all crucial data. Talk to one a week for 10 minutes. 100%. See what's on their mind.
No, I love it. The data is not the same as the comment, right? The verbatims, and having a conversation is hugely illuminating. I love it.
Yeah. Now I got to go walk the walk and do that now. Okay. Adam Topolak, President, CTS Service Solutions. Hey, we can't thank you enough for joining this LinkedIn Live on CMSWire.com is the website, Simpler Media Group, parent company. We also have a sister site, rework.co. Check them guys out too. Hey, Adam, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate you having me.
And thanks for listening. Have a good day, everyone.